Here is the voice of the working class, Rick Smith.
And welcome, brothers, sisters, working class heroes. This is the Rick Smith Show. Thanks so much for being here today on the big program. Lots to get to, lots to talk about. Some good news. Good news. Good news, yes, indeed. America getting a little happier. Try a little bit happier, new happiness ratings out. Although fifth year in a row, Finland, the happiest nation on the planet. Not surprising. But the U.S. jumped 3 spots up to 16. We were 19th back in 2021. Now all the way up to 16th. And I got to tell you, I'm kind of surprised by that, given the fact that we are kind of divided. The polling that was out, recently, it said, people aren't so happy with each other. The fact that the United Nations Sustainable Development Solution Network has come out with this World Happiness Report 2022 puts us at 16th. I'm okay with that. 16th, not bad. Could do better. We can work on this. We can do better. Now, I do think we can do some things around doing better. The New York Times today had a very interesting editorial that I wanted to spend a little time on and get some thoughts on. I want to hear your thoughts. 1-866-416-RICK, 1-866-416-7425. Free speech. Now, we all think we have the right to free speech. We can say whatever we want. We have the right to free speech. I can say what I want. And, I like to remind people, free speech, you have the right to that between you and your government, not between you and me. And this is the weird world that we live in. And I like the fact that people are somewhat kind of thinking about what they're saying. Now, the editorial that the good folks over at the New York Times thought important to put out today, titled, we have a problem. America has a free speech problem. And I'm going, really? I must have missed it, because absolute free speech doesn't exist. Never has. At least I don't think it has. And they ask about cancel culture, which doesn't exist. Sorry. And one of the lines from the op-ed, and I'm going to read the part that, just jumped right out at me right at the beginning. The opening salvo, if you will. For all the tolerance and enlightenment that modern society claims, Americans are losing hold of a fundamental right as citizens of a free country. The right to speak their minds and voice their opinions in public without fear of being shamed or shunned. And I'm reading this and I'm going, hold on, wait a second. When has that ever been? When have we ever had the right to speak our minds in public without fear of someone shaming us or shunning us or yelling at us or anything? When have we ever had this unfettered right? I must be missing something, because I don't remember it. I don't. They go on to say, and this is one of those things that get me, many Americans are understandably confused then about what they can say and where they can say it. People should be able to put forth viewpoints, ask questions, and make mistakes, and take unpopular but good faith positions on issues that society is still working through, all without fear of cancellation. And first, what are you talking about, cancellation? What do you mean by cancellation? Do you mean, being shouted down and, if you say something horribly racist, being called out on this? What do you mean by that? I need the clarifier. But the next sentence is what really made me chuckle, because I'm still trying to figure out what that means. However you define cancel culture, Americans know it exists and feel its burden. Okay, so we don't know what it is. And I love this. This is so great. Thank you, New York Times. Thank you for clearing all this up. We know there's something out there. It's called cancel culture. We don't know what it is. We can't define it. Don't have a definition. But we know it's there. And it's a heavy burden. It's burdening all of us. It's harming us. It's making us feel bad about ourselves. And editorials like this only make it worse. But hey, we know it's there. It's burdening us. It's weighing us down. They go on to say, because they have a poll. They have a poll. Consider this finding from our poll. Oh my gosh, you did a poll? Oh, you're so brilliant. 55% of the respondents said that they had held their tongues over the past year because they were concerned about retaliation or harsh criticism. I got to tell you, I think that's a damn good thing. Because here's the reality. If someone's holding their tongue in this moment, if someone is self-censoring themselves, it's because they know what they're going to say is something really stupid, is something wrong, is something ridiculous, is something racist, homophobic. You pick your category, pick your slice of wrong. Pick it. Because they know that's the reason that they're, I don't want to be canceled. Now remember what they said a moment ago. And this is the part that, again, I go back to because it's important. Many Americans are understandably confused then about what they can say and where they can say it. People should be able to put forth viewpoints, ask questions, and make mistakes and take unpopular but good faith positions. That being the key, the qualifier in all of it. Good faith. Good faith. You don't get to make a good faith argument if your intent is, well, horrible. If it is the white supremacy, if it's the extreme bounds. Now, I'm a big believer in, I want to hear the racists and the homophobes, and I want to hear the white supremacists, and I want to hear the horrible people. I want them telling me who they are so we can believe them, so we know who they are. So there they are. So we can deal with them accordingly. I am not someone who says we should be censoring them. We should be the ones with more speech. I'm a big believer in more speech. And to the credit of the New York Times, they do point out that liberals used to believe this. I am not a big fan of safe space, and I'm not a big fan of the censorship that's going on and the quieting of things. No. I want people to speak, and I want more speech. And I want people to show us who they are. Now, here's the thing. We've always had people say stupid stuff. And they've always been held accountable. In the old days, and this is where, when I was a kid, if someone said something stupid, they said it to, one or two people. And a few people heard it. And a few people thought, wow, that guy's just a jerk, or he's an a-hole. Guys, he is what he is. Today, we've got social media, and it's amplified a million times. So now what you get is, you get a lot of people thinking you're a giant flaming a-hole. And that's, I think this is where people are a little more hesitant than they were in the past. Because, hey, if your neighborhood thinks you're just a giant pain in the you-know-what, that's one thing. But if the entire world knows it, that's a little different. And I think that could be kind of where they're going. Because there are some ideas that we as a society have gone, maybe we're moving past. And maybe that's a good thing. Maybe it's a good thing that people are starting to hold their tongues on things that maybe we shouldn't be talking about. I'm curious your thoughts. They did ask a couple of questions, and I'd like your answers. You can give me your thoughts, 1-866-416-RICK, 1-866-416-7425. They asked the question over the past year, have you held your tongue because you were concerned about retaliation or harsh criticism? And this is a tough one. You know, sitting in this chair doing what I do, you know, I had to think long and hard about this. And there are some things that I've gone, you know, have I held my tongue? And the answer is no. I've never really held my tongue. I've talked about everything that I want to talk about. There are some things that you go, yeah, I don't have answers to, and I from the good faith position have brought it up because I don't have the answers, and I'm honest about it. I don't know what the answer is, and I do think we have to have an honest conversation, an honest good faith conversation. One of it being around this swimmer at the University of Penn, who you know, I don't know everything I need to know about transgender athletes, but at the end of it, it's a conversation we do need to have. That's one area. But I'm curious, how many people have held their tongues over things that they felt uncomfortable with? Let's go to the phone lines. Got Alice on line one. Let's see if Alice has anything that has held her tongue. I don't think so. Alice, how are you?
I'm good, and I have not held my tongue because I have feared retaliation or being canceled or anything else. I have held my tongue a few times because I've thought, oh, I'm not in the mood to get into a big argument, but not because of any fear.
Time, right? I don't have all day.
Yes.
I understand that.
Have a good one.
Thank you so much, Alice. And look, that's I understand that point of view. Now, is this a white male privilege thing that I go, okay, I don't understand holding your tongue. If you've got something to say it. Again, coming back to that position of it being from a place of good faith. They also asked the question, in the past year, have you retaliated against or harshly criticized another person because of something he or she said? Oh yeah, I do that 2 hours a night. So, and I'm going to do it again tonight. So there's a bunch of that. So get ready for it, because I don't believe, again, back to that good faith, I don't believe dumb people saying dumb things is necessarily a bad thing unless they mean it from a place of hatred or anger or such. They go on to number 3. How much of a problem is it that some Americans do not exercise their free speech in everyday situations out of fear or retaliation or harsh criticism? And I got to tell you, I don't think it's a bad thing that people self-censor themselves. I don't think it's a bad thing for people to not say and do dumb things. I just don't. I think people having conversations about important issues, something we need to do. Politics is something that we need to be able to talk about, but we need to be able to talk about it in a way that absolutely positively is constructive, not destructive, that encourages positive dialogue, not destructive dialogue, that builds us up and not tears us down, that moves us forward and not rips us backward. And sadly, where our political discourse is taking us today is in all the wrong directions. And it's just, it's just going in that way. Let's go to the phones. Got Kurt on line 2. Kurt, how are we doing today?
I'm doing good, Rick.
What's on your mind, brother?
So I told Carol, I said, I have to talk because I can't keep my mouth shut. So I said, Rick would probably give me a medal for running my mouth. And there's a lot of things I get involved in. And I wanted to bring something up that's happening right now on free speech in Minnesota. There are 6 bills that they have in legislation right now to try to stop the protesters and people standing against Line 3, which is they're all backed by the same dark money groups and trade associations that are working to criminalize climate protest. And these groups in turn are supported by the big oil. So along with, I kind of put that into free speech as well.
Yep.
It's silencing the voice of those, this Line 3 is going to do some very bad stuff in this area.
Yeah, it's not just that. I mean, you think about all the stuff they're doing around that theory about race that's critical. You think about all the books they're trying to ban off the bookshelves. You think of the "Don't Say Gay" thing down in Florida. You think about all of the the abortion stuff that they're trying to do. You think of all of the intrusions into our private life that they're attempting to do, and it's all coming from the right at this point. The people who are supposed to be the defenders of keeping government out of our lives and small, less intrusive government. And this is where they're taking us.
Right. And then, so if they do pass these laws, and it, as you know, and as you just said, I mean, it just keeps going. So what group is going to be next? And it even comes to one of the things I talked about down in Texas with the voter suppression stuff is, the voter suppression laws that are going on, they kind of target the, minorities right now. And I've had several people, including Republicans, say, okay, so what comes next after that? Who is next? And, even some conservative Republicans have told me that they fear they could be part of a group, because it doesn't end there. And, it just goes on and on and on. So,
yeah, no matter what, Kurt, we're all in the Shark Tank. It's just a matter of when you're next.
Exactly.
Good stuff, brother. Appreciate it.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks so much. I'd love to hear your thoughts. 1-866-416-RICK, 1-866-416-7425. Going to take a quick break, right back on the other side. Stick around. You're listening to The Rick Smith Show. We're working people. Come to talk. Think tank approved corporate news and commentary? Are you tired of CEOs telling you what to think, who to hate, and who to vote for? Well, welcome to the Rick Smith Show. We don't take orders from some boardroom, and we don't do focus groups or talking points. We don't work for them, and we never will. I'm Rick Smith, and I work for you. Join us daily at thericksmithshow.com and download the podcast and never miss a minute.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
One 866-416-RICK, 1-866-416-7425. Love to hear your thoughts, questions, comments, something on your mind. You can also email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com, or if you miss any of the program, make sure you download the podcast. Take the program on the go wherever you go. Interesting. Tom Tillis, senator from North Carolina, taking some shots at Madison Cawthorn. Thought interesting. Tillis, senator from North Carolina, again, Republican, said that Madison Cawthorn's recent remarks about President Zelensky of Ukraine, about him being a thug and being a corrupt and all of this, are being replayed over and over and over again by Russian state propaganda outlets. So, hey, Madison, congratulations. You're on Putin's list. And here's the thing, and this is This is where you get the Marjorie Taylor Greens and the all of the apologists who are saying, no, we're not pro Putin. We're anti-Putin. No, we're the anti-Putin. No, Putin's bad. No, Putin's bad. But you can't poke the Russian bear. Oh no. They're laboratories. Hunter Biden. Joe Biden's weak. All of this other stuff. This is what I love about, you got to find a reason to we're not going to get on board. We're not going to stand with the president. We're going to make sure that we go after the president. Even if you're not 100% on Putin's side, you're still carrying the water, because ultimately, if you listen to them, they're going to tell you, well, NATO overstepped their bounds. Russia does have legitimate security concerns, which all of these are extremely popular Kremlin talking points. And you hear them regurgitate them ad nauseum. And you get them from the far right and the far left, which is kind of interesting. Now, another Hunter Biden story today, which I'm not even going to bother talking about because it's ridiculous, but it just shows how deep the radical right is going to look for a distraction. It's kind of like, I saw this and I was talking about this today. I go, it's kind of like, I forget who does CSI, what TV station does it, what network, but it's kind of like, they got CSI everything. It's kind of like if you went like CSI Topeka or, CSI French Lick, Indiana. I mean, we're digging to the bottom. Not that French Lick, Indiana is a bad place. It's where Larry Bird comes from, but I'm going to guess not an awful lot of high crimes. Probably not a lot of murders going on there that CSI is going to have to dig into. So probably not the most exciting TV show. But hey, you got to put something out. You got to have a distraction of some sort. So this is what we're getting. More nonsense about Hunter Biden and laptops. More laptops. Now, funny story. There was a big rally today in Moscow. Putin had a big to do. 8th anniversary of them stealing Crimea from Ukraine. And Putin was in rare form. We're shoulder to shoulder. Soldiers are helping each other, supporting each other. Haven't done this in a while. We're fighting Nazis. They're fighting Nazis. Problem is during the whole thing, evidently cut away. The state TV, Russian state TV, just cut away, just started playing patriotic songs in the middle for some reason. No one can tell me why. I don't know if Putin went off the deep end. Don't know if someone flipped a switch. Don't know if it was hacked. Don't know, if the hacktivists got in and started, drawing curly mustaches on him or put horns on his head as he was speaking. I don't know. But it would be funny if they did. So there is that. But I do know back here, as we voted yesterday to suspend permanent normal trade relations, there were 8 Republicans, Matt Gaetz, Thomas Massie, Glenn Grotham, Dan Bishop, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Lauren Boebert, Chip Roy, and Andy Biggs, who voted with Putin to maintain trade relations. So it kind of makes me go, hey guys, just a thought. Maybe, I don't know, not. Just a thought. Love to hear yours. You can email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. Make sure you grab the podcast, take the program on the go. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, our good buddy Max Burns is going to be here to share some thoughts on the top stories of the day. Stick around. You're listening to The Rick Smith Show. I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1918. That was the day workers at Wagner Electric in St. Louis ended their 12-day walkout in exchange for promised negotiations regarding union recognition, higher wages, and fewer work hours. Wagner held defense contracts to provide detonators and firing pins for munitions. With the U.S. entrance into World War I, the orders increased, as did the labor shortage. In this instance, instance, more women entered the workforce. Wagner was no exception. During this period, nearly a quarter of the St. Louis factory workers were female. Yet the unionized industries made no attempt to organize them. Amid a strike that rocked the city, about 1,000 men and women struck at Wagner on March 6th. They demanded the reinstatement of co-workers who had been fired for attending a machinist union meeting. A week later, close to 2,700 workers were on strike. The male workers at Wagner made less than half of their counterparts in the unionized industries, while their women co-workers made half of that. Workers contended that Wagner violated federal contracts by refusing to honor the 8-hour workday and equal pay for equal work. Historian Rosemary Furrer notes the Ordnance Department reached a tentative deal to get workers back to the job, and then spiked negotiations by smearing strikers as unpatriotic. The company refused to address long-standing grievances. According to Catherine Corbett, Wagner Electric also required workers to sign loyalty pledges to the company. Over half of the workforce would walk out the following month with the support of Mother Jones. Workers appealed to a more sympathetic war labor board, but found they could not get the agreements they demanded until the years of industrial organizing of the 1930s. For more information, go to laborhistoryin2.com, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter at laborhistoryin2.
In corporate speak, there are no, quote, job cuts. Instead, firings are blandly referred to as employment adjustments. Now, though, corporate wordsmiths will need a whole new thesaurus of euphemisms, for masses of job cuts are coming for employees in the higher echelons of the corporate structure. Don't look now, but an unanticipated result of the ongoing pandemic is that it has given cover for CEOs to speed up the adoption of highly advanced RPAs, robotic process automation, to replace employees once assumed to be immune from displacement. As one analyst told a New York Times reporter, with RPA, you can build a bot that costs $10,000 a year and take out 2 to 4 humans. Prior to the COVID crisis, many top executives feared a public backlash if they pushed automation too far too fast. But ironically, the economic collapse caused by the pandemic has so discombobulated the workplace and diverted public attention that corporate bosses have been emboldened to rush ahead. While the nationwide shutdown of offices and furloughing of employees has caused misery for millions, one happy purveyor of RPA systems notes that it has, quote, massively raised awareness among executives about the variety of work that no longer requires human involvement. He cheerfully declares, "We think any business process can be automated," advising corporate bosses that half to 2/3 of all the tasks being done at their companies can be done by machines. This is Jim Hightower saying, conventional corporate wisdom blithely preaches that all new technologies create more jobs than they kill. But even these Pollyannish preachers are now conceding that this robotic automation of white-collar jobs is being imposed so widely, suddenly, and stealthily that losses will crush any gains.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So I woke up today to a funny tweet. Ted Cruz losing his mind. Evidently, Stacey Abrams did a guest appearance, a cameo, if you will, on the season finale of Star Trek Discovery. She was the president of United Earth, and that was enough to have him lose his mind. And if that's if that's all it was, I say we put her on in a recurring role. Let's cast her that for every season finale from now till the end of time. Anyway, here to share some thoughts on the top stories of the day and all the other things that are going to probably drive Ted Cruz crazy. I've asked Max Burns to come talk with us. Max is a Democratic strategist, also a columnist over at the Daily Beast. Max, thanks for taking time for us.
Anytime. Great to be here.
So it doesn't take much to get under the thin skin of the Ted Cruz, does it?
No, I will say Stacey Abrams looking great for presumably 230 years old when Star Trek takes place. But yeah, Ted Cruz obviously not a whole lot occupying his time during this global crisis, that he has all this time to comment on the media and TV culture. It's a very sort of Trumpy transformation for him.
Yeah, it did. Look, he's got nothing else to do, really. I mean, he's got no orange behind to kiss. Not a lot going on. Not a lot going on in his world.
And I mean, his state's busy restricting abortion rights and restricting the rights of immigrants. So they've got that under control as far as he's concerned. They're surprised he's doing this from America and not tweeting from Cancun.
Well, there is that. I wanted to get your thoughts on a couple of things. Did you see the big Putin rally in Moscow where Putin's like, hey, our soldiers, they're soldiers. They're shoulder to shoulder. They're helping each other. They're dodging in front of bullets for each other. They haven't had unity like this in a long time. We're fighting Nazis. They're fighting Nazis, Max.
I'll tell you, that unity speech that he gave, you don't give a speech like that when everyone's unified and things are going well. It was actually the case that the Moscow State TV cut out of the speech because he kept going on, which is fairly unprecedented over there. But then again, they've seen a huge number of TV staff quit and say that we won't broadcast propaganda, that the state is lying to you. This is a Vladimir Putin with his back against the wall, to the point where even some of his longtime allies are starting to cool on this and saying, maybe you need to draw back. And I'm not sure that it's possible for him to go back at this point.
No, I don't think it is. So we know why they cut away, because I know they were playing patriotic songs. I'm like, was it a hacktivist? What was it? They just moved away because he was droning on. Is that what the official word is?
That's what I'm seeing across social media. Of course, we're not going to know the official word because now Putin's cracking down even more than ever on the press. I mean, he's going to a point of authoritarianism that we have not seen in a developed nation in a very long time. And it's justifiably shocking to a lot of people who have never seen this before, and very ominous to people who have.
No, I mean, you're looking at this and yesterday we talked about he's now threatening Bosnia and Herzegovina. He's now making other overtures, possibly, looking at nukes happening at some point. I mean, the guy's kind of appears to be going somewhere near the deeper part of the end.
And that seems to be like a growing consensus that I've seen in the international relations community, is that Vladimir Putin was a very rational actor. You could understand what he was going to do. You could figure out the logic behind his strategies, but that's decreasingly the case. There are things going on now that are just disastrous misjudgments that are inexplicable by any kind of strategy that he's hewed to in the past. And it's concerning to a lot of people because you obviously don't want a madman with authoritarian power and nuclear weapons. And a lot of those bombs that are being dropped by Russian planes are getting within 10, 12 miles of the Polish border. And if they start hitting NATO territory, there are going to be a lot of very sharp conversations very quickly.
What do you think happens then? I mean, because, there's been, I'm sure there has to be discussions on what happens when that happens, because I think inevitably it's going to happen, especially as what happens in Ukraine gets more bogged down. I'm curious, what do you think where does that move us?
I think that gets us to a no-fly zone immediately. This is something Zelensky's asked for. He gave one of the great speeches of recent history to Congress, speaking very plainly to Joe Biden, telling him to be the president of peace, to close the skies. It's inexplicable to me that NATO hasn't enforced some kind of no-fly zone here, where it is predominantly civilian buildings and civilian suffering from these attacks. And it is just kicking this can down the road to when there will be an errant bomb or an errant missile that goes into Polish territory. And then you have real geopolitical problems that make this seem very small. And that's not to minimize Ukraine at all. It's just that the scope of the problem magnifies so rapidly when you start dragging in NATO.
See, here's where my problem is, and this is where I'm with the president. and you can disagree with me. I think the second you have that American plane and that Russian plane engaging with each other, this is no longer Russia and the Ukraine. This is now Russia and the U.S. engaged in battle. This is now World War III. I mean, that's, to me, that's what he wants. And that then mobilizes the Russian people in a way that I don't know that they are right now.
No, you're right. It does. And right now, I think the consensus has been, I saw a piece in the New York Times recently that Putin has about 10 to 12 days of core supplies left, that he essentially has 2 weeks to win this war before things get to be politically untenable for him. And that a lot of these illiberal forces in Russia that he has cultivated and used to his own advantage come back on him in a way that, in his case, could be fatal. But yeah, I think that this is already a world war. It's just a question of when the world starts figuring that out. And we see it growing bit by bit, day by day. And the question is, does Putin have the energy to continue this, or does it fizzle out before it expands? And our hope should be that the Russian state cannot make war efficiently in 2 weeks, because if they still can, there's certain to be an escalation.
Yeah, I mean, because I got to imagine the economic costs to Russia, just unbelievable. And look, I want no pain and suffering for the people on either side of the Russia-Ukraine border. I mean, this isn't them. And I think, I'm sure you saw Arnold Schwarzenegger's video. I think he was spot on. And it was my position from the beginning. This is one guy. I think this is one rich a-hole who's sending poor working class kids into Ukraine to engage in this. It's one guy's responsibility. He's the a-hole. He's the one who should be held responsible, not those people.
Yeah, and I give a huge amount of credit and respect to the Russian people who have been out protesting, some of the largest protests since the fall of the Soviet Union in 1991. And this is a place where protest is not a symbolic act. People are being jailed, people are being beaten, people are being killed because they are protesting. It is not a protected right in Russia. It is a threat to the Russian autocratic system. So speaking out, having reporters on live television say, I can do this no longer, I won't bear this on my soul, is an incredible moment when you realize they are risking a gun to the back of their heads to share that message with the world, and it's on us to listen.
Yeah. Now, I understand President Biden had a long conversation with Xi Jinping today, about 2 hours, and warned him, hey, stay out of this. Don't get involved with Russia. And because you have to know that China was involved in this early on and probably gave Russia the blessing and probably gave them some assurances that they would be behind them. But this is going much worse than I'm sure anyone ever imagined. And now China's got to be looking at this going, I don't know that we want our reputation soiled. What are you hearing?
Yeah, and I think if anything, the U.S. readout of that meeting probably read a bit more aggressive than it was. We've seen in the past few days, as this has really bogged down, as we've seen Putin make these inexplicable military decisions that just get columns of Russian soldiers slaughtered, that China has actually backed off quite visibly in their early support, that they've started talking to the United States, they've started talking to Western countries. And this is an example of the dictator's dilemma, is that he's raising the transaction cost of associating with Russia so much that China is now weighing that Russian failure is more likely than Russian success. So their response is to hedge their bets.
Yep.
And they've almost certainly looked at this and thought, well, we're going back to the drawing board on Taiwan as well. Any kind of invasion would be suicidal. We need to think of another approach for this. And yeah, if anything, it's China moving very visibly toward the United States. It's been a while since there's been a call of this length that both sides have not openly criticized as soon as it was over.
Yeah, no, this is one of those moments, and I go back to what I said, about a week and a half, when all of this started. Thank goodness for Joe Biden being in the White House, for his steady, calming, knowledgeable leadership in this moment. His ability to pull the world together, the relationships he's built, because I don't know that there's anyone else who could have done as quickly as as he has done, pulled everyone together the way that we've done in this moment? Or do you think I'm wrong?
No, I think barring 9/11, when the world basically came to the United States and said, how can we help? We've never seen a coalition come together voluntarily so quickly, so completely. I mean, we've persuaded through Anthony Blinken, through Joe Biden, these European countries to sanction Russia in ways that sometimes actually hurts the European economy a little bit to do the right thing. It would be financially, politically easier to not do the right thing. But it is a statement of how effectively Biden and Blinken have engaged these countries, talked to them one-to-one, and won them over. It's an incredible statement to me that you see China speaking for 2 hours with the United States, and yet on Chinese media, there's not a single criticism of that meeting. There's not a single bit of gloating from the Chinese Communist Party, which is normally the way to go. And it tells me that they're actually measuring this relationship and trying to build something here, maybe very short term about Ukraine, but still, China in a rapprochement with the US is very exciting.
No, it's important, and it's a great thing. You're listening to the Rick Smith Show. We're here with Max Burns. Max is a Democratic strategist and political analyst, also columnist at the Daily Beast. Make sure you check out his work there at the Daily Beast. One of the things I want to change gears here real quick. I'm sure you saw the New York Times editorial today that caught my attention, that free speech is under attack here. I mean, we see what's going on in Russia. We see this clampdown on media. We see, the fact that, they're talking about jailing reporters for years. We're seeing the videos of people being snatched up for just talking to reporters. Do you think there's a free speech crisis in America? Have you held your tongue over being feared that you're going to be canceled?
I think there is a crisis at the New York Times. Like, I'm angry because I've pitched the New York Times op-eds that were just as stupid as this one, and they've said no. Yet they will certainly run their own idiocy. I mean, this op-ed said in no uncertain terms that it is the equivalent of censoring speech to shun people, to say, I don't want to have anything to do with what you're saying. I'm just going to stand over here and not participate in what you're doing, is now oppression. So this right-wing viewpoint has shifted the goalpost so much that even refusing to listen at all is inappropriate. You have to sit and listen to what they're going to say and listen to this nonsense and nod your head and smile, or they'll get offended. And they say that that's equivalent to what's happening in Moscow right now. I cannot believe it is a serious op-ed. I thought it was a joke.
Yeah, I went through it and I'm like, when have we ever had the right to speak our mind and voice our opinions without fear of being shamed or shunned? When have we ever had the unfettered right to say whatever the heck we wanted without someone calling on us on it? When has that ever been?
Yeah, I mean, this is basically just being alive around people. And it is the idea, this is the core insecurity that leads to a lot of conservative authoritarianism, is the idea that if people are not forced to sit and listen to you, to sit and listen to your white supremacy, to your anti-gay, anti-abortion, anti-immigrant drivel, that they will justifiably choose not to listen to it. The only way to get that message across is by forcibly making people listen. And that's the argument that we have here. That's not freedom of expression. That's forcible subjection of people to your expression. And that is not at all what the founders wanted. I think they made that very clear.
Yeah, and the other thing to me is, we talk a lot about free speech. And, maybe I'm the only one who sees free speech as not an absolute. You and I have free speech between us and our government, but not to each other. We have the right to speak freely to our government, but not to each other. You don't have the right to say anything you want to me at any point. And I think that's where this all breaks down, because there are consequences when you say things to people. When I was a kid, if you said something stupid, people just smacked you. We live in a very different time, and I have advocated, and I know my liberal friends are going to, no, you can't do that. When you said something stupid, someone smacked you, you didn't say dumb stuff anymore. I'm not horribly opposed to that.
And the challenge is that this is all in response to the fact that when Republicans say dumb things on Twitter, they either get banned or shouted down, and it hurts their feelings. Yeah. This is a party that seriously considers itself a major policy party in the United States of America that cannot even have a conversation with you unless you are legally prevented from telling them that they're full of nonsense. I mean, I don't understand how this position isn't laughed out of any forum in which it's shared.
It's just plain crazy, and I guess it's just the time that we live in. But you know, it is what it is. But Max, I appreciate the time as always. Great stuff, my friend. Keep up the work, great work over at Daily Beast, and I look forward to talking to you again real soon.
Anytime. Thanks for having me.
Good stuff. Our good friend Max Burns. Make sure you check out his work there at Daily Beast. We'll make sure we get links out on social media how you can check out his fantastic work. Love to hear your thoughts. 1-866-416-RICK. 1-866-416-7425. Quick break. Right back. Stick around. Listen to The Rick Smith Show. We're working people. Come to talk. I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1968. That was the day the staff at radio station KMPX in San Francisco went out on strike. The radio station had broken new ground with their underground rock format. In 1967, the station hired Tom Big Daddy Donahue as a DJ. Prior to that time, the station had aired mostly foreign language programming. Their new DJ brought a new, cutting-edge style to the radio dial. Instead of playing the big hits of the day, as most radio stations did, Donahue played local artists and songs you would not hear on other programs. Soon the station had fully transitioned to music programming. It featured a mix of rock, folk, and blues. Sometimes DJs even spun full albums like the Beatles' Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Heart Club Band. Soon, the popularity of the programming led the owners to lend Donahue to KPPC out of Pasadena, California. Stretched thin, tensions over creative differences soon mounted between Donahue and the owners. When Donahue was replaced, the rest of the staff walked off the job. The owner hired replacement workers, and bands like the Rolling Stones, the Grateful Dead, and Joan Baez boycotted the station. The Grateful Dead held 3 benefit concerts for the strikers. Creedence Clearwater Revival played a street concert from the back of a flatbed truck to support their cause. The strike lasted 8 weeks before Donahue and some of the staff found a new gig at another station. So may I introduce to you the acting of for all these years, Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show. For more information, go to laborhistoryin2.com.
You're listening to The Rick Smith Show, where working people come to talk.
1-866-416-RICK, 1-866-416-7425. You got a thought, question, comment, something on your mind? I'm going to do a little shaming right here. Here it comes. Ready for it? Quote of the day, Marjorie Taylor Greene. On the House floor. I have never seen the CDC coming out saying, oh, you've got to get your second polio shot. You've got to get your third. You've got to get your fourth. Let me repeat that. Marjorie Taylor Greene. Quote, I have never seen the CDC coming out saying, you've got to go get your second polio shot. You've got to get your third. You've got to get your fourth. Okay. Anybody think she's right? Anybody? Going once? Going twice? Went to CDC's website. cdc.gov/vaccines/parents/diseases/polio.html. 4 doses of the polio shot for children are recommended by doctors as the best way to protect against polio. 1 to 2 months, 4 months, 6 months, and 4 years. It was literally a 4-shot regimen. So literally the dumbest woman on the planet literally walked into that. And look, you remember the good faith part of this? And I go back to good faith. If she was coming at this from a good faith point of view, going, well, is it really necessary? If she were really doing that, then I would say, okay, it's worth having a conversation around. But it's not. This is still a woman who thinks ivermectin is the way forward. Even though a study came out today, guess what? Ivermectin, nothing. No good whatsoever. And we already knew. But here again, if you're getting your medical advice from her, you got problems. But there you go. Marjorie Taylor Greene. File this under the heading of, oh, hell no. Moderna's board of directors, they approved what's called a golden parachute. Yeah, golden parachute. I don't know, when I get fired, and I've only been fired a couple of times, and it was years ago. When I got fired, it was, there's the door, get out! I've never gotten a golden parachute, so I don't know what one's like. But Stephen Bancel, he's the CEO of Moderna. Evidently, he's leaving. And evidently, his golden parachute from the is worth more than $926 million at the end of last year, up from the $9.4 million in 2009 before the COVID. It's being reported that the value of his so-called change in control package, I love that language, change in control package, has varied, as a bulk of it, $922 million, is in the company's stock. I'm of the mindset, you look at this right now, who's in the Senate, who's in Congress. Right now, there should be a 99.9% windfall tax on this part of it. Oh, hell no. You don't get to get fired, I'm sorry, change in control, and end up with almost $1 billion. Especially since most of it is government money that went into it because of the vaccine. No, no, no. Did I mention no? This is the stuff that makes people crazy. This is the stuff that makes people extremely angry. And you throw on top of this that the president of Moderna now, this Stephen Hoge, he cashed out almost $166 million in stock options last year. And the chief technical officer, he cashed out almost $195 million in stock options last year. They're cashing in huge off of the pandemic. There should be a massive, massive pandemic profiteering, tax going on right now. I'm sorry, the majority of the country is struggling and suffering. Sorry, oh hell no. I mean, that's the best I can come up with. Absolutely not. No. Can I say no again? No. But again, this is the stuff that ticks people off. While families are struggling to put food on the table, these guys are lining their pockets with obscene amounts of money. I mean, obscene. And I love that. Change in control. That used to be called getting fired, canned, booted, axed. Change in control. Wow. Gonna take a quick break. If you're just joining us, make sure you grab the podcast. Never miss a second. Quick break. Right back after this. Stick around. You're listening to The Rick Smith Show.
Republicans were looking for a scalp, and they basically got it.
Republicans and Joe Manchin quash nomination of a climate hawk to the Fed. Methane emissions from coal mining far higher than previously thought. Plus,
Lake Powell has now hit a record low water level.
And the hydropower it produces is at stake.
Fantastic. All of those stories and more straight ahead from BradBlog.com. I'm Brad Friedman.
And I'm Desi Doyen.
Stand by for 6 minutes of independent green news, politics, analysis, and snarky comment.
Now that things are opening up, I was out with a bunch of people there. They said, let's go someplace expensive. So I took them to a Chevron station.
This is your Green News Report.
We can finally leave the house, and we can't afford to drive anywhere.
Okay, Desi Doyen, the price of oil is actually down 30% over the past week, and yet, for some reason, the price at the gas stations have not come down at all. Go figure.
They have not.
Crazy the way that works. Anyway, what else you got for us today?
Well, as Russia's war on Ukraine rages on and continues to upend the geopolitics of energy, climate change hasn't paused one bit. First up, Arizona's Lake Powell Reservoir has hit a new historic low, the lowest since the reservoir was built, and much sooner than scientists expected. Water levels along the entire Colorado River watershed are declining due to rising temperatures and the deepening mega drought plaguing the U.S. West due to man-made global warming. It's reducing water supplies for millions of people in 7 states and downstream wildlife, but it's also threatening power supplies. Water managers warn that Lake Powell is close to hitting Deadpool status, where it can no longer deliver clean hydroelectric power to millions of customers.
This is working out great.
Meanwhile, the fossil fuel industry, which is responsible for causing the climate crisis, has succeeded in tanking President Biden's nominee for the top bank regulator at the Federal Reserve, Sarah Bloom Raskin. Despite previously being twice confirmed by the Senate, Raskin withdrew this week after conservative Democratic Senator Joe Manchin of the coal state of West Virginia joined Republicans in opposition, dooming her chances in the 50-50 Senate.
Did you call him conservative Democratic Senator Joe Manchin?
Yes.
You mean corrupt Democratic Senator Joe Manchin, I think.
The fossil fuel industry lobbied heavily against Raskin over her evidence-based public positions identifying climate change as an extreme systemic risk to the U.S. financial system and her calls for the Fed, the nation's top financial regulator, to integrate climate risk analysis to ensure the stability of the financial system. Bloomberg reporter Michael McCuddy succinctly explained Manchin's opposition.
Now, he's nominally a Democrat. He is from a coal-producing state. He didn't like her views on energy going forward, but he also makes his family money from the coal company he owns.
Yes, he does. And as for the Republicans, did they mention that Sarah Bloom Raskin happens to be married to House impeachment manager Jamie Raskin in their complaints?
Nope.
Cowards.
In other news, the Securities and Exchange Commission is set to unveil groundbreaking new rules forcing publicly traded companies to disclose their financial risks from climate change to protect investors.
Oh, I hope that's okay with Joe Manchin.
And for the first time, also disclose their greenhouse gas emissions in a standardized way, which will bring the U.S. more in line with other countries.
Joe Manchin ain't gonna like it.
The new rules are part of the Biden administration's broader push to force the private sector to address the dangers of global warming.
Good.
Meanwhile, a new study concludes that coal mining emits more climate-warming methane globally than the oil and gas industry.
Really?
That's important because methane is a more powerful greenhouse gas than carbon dioxide on shorter timescales. The analysis from Global Energy Monitor is the first to measure methane emissions from more than 2,000 individual coal mines around the world, finding that coal mine emissions are 50% higher than the EPA estimates and exceed the carbon dioxide emissions from China's 1,000-plus coal-fired power plants.
How did Joe Manchin become a millionaire again?
His family-owned coal business.
Huh.
A major leak at a ConocoPhillips oil field in Alaska's North Slope has been spewing methane uncontrolled for nearly 2 weeks now, forcing the evacuation of hundreds of employees from the site. The company says it is now working to remediate the leak. Finally, ExxonMobil has lost another appeal to halt an investigation by the Massachusetts Attorney General into whether the company lied to investors and the public about what it knew about climate change.
Yes, they did, and yes, they should pay for it.
Exxon had tried to argue that the Massachusetts Attorney General's probe violates the corporation's right to free speech under the First Amendment, but the Second Circuit Court of Appeals denied Exxon's latest attempt to escape the investigation.
You have the right to free speech. you don't have the right to defraud investors and the American public. For much more on all of those stories and the ones we couldn't get to today, check out our website at greennews.bradblog.com.
Are you tired of think tank approved corporate news and commentary? Are you tired of CEOs telling you what to think, who to hate, and who to vote for? Well, welcome to the Rick Smith Show. We don't take orders from some boardroom, and we don't do focus groups or talking points. We don't work for them, and we never will. I'm Rick Smith, and I work for you. Join us daily at thericksmithshow.com and download the podcast and never miss a minute.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So as you know, one of the things that I like to follow is any organizing going on in the South, especially in no rights at work states, like North Carolina, where, for a long time, union busters have had the upper hand. So when you see, people saying, you know what, we're going to band together, we're going to fight for better wages, hours, conditions, a say on the job, I think it's important to point out. And I look at this Piedmont Health Services Providers United Union that is just organized, and overwhelmingly, like 91%, they won their election. And, as I was reading through some of the stories, these healthcare providers talking about why they were organizing, it was all about burnout. It was all about ensuring that they had the tools necessary to take care of their patients. They had the things that they needed to do their jobs. It wasn't about it. At least I didn't see it. It wasn't about the money. It wasn't about the benefits. It was about being able, to get the respect, the dignity, and the tools that they needed to do their job. And I think that's important. I think it's really important. And here to share some thoughts on, the whole process, how we get to this point right now, and maybe the hows and whys. I've asked Michaela McCuddy to come talk with us. She's a union member, spokesperson for the Piedmont Health Services Providers United Union, also a healthcare provider herself. Michaela, thanks for taking time for us.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
So let's start right from the beginning. Back in November, you guys, you banded together, you came together, and you said, "Hey, here's our demands. This is what we want. We're coming together. We're forming a union." You came to the boss and said, "Here's our list of our demands." Why'd you do it?
Yeah, well, so we are a group of extremely passionate healthcare providers. I'm a family medicine physician. I work together with nurse practitioners, physician's assistants, nurse midwives, and we are working in federally qualified healthcare centers where we are serving our most underserved communities and providing affordable healthcare for people that don't have insurance or are underinsured. We come into it knowing that there are difficulties and knowing that, that is our passion to help our patients with these barriers. But in the workplace, over time within our organization, there's been more of an approach that providers are somewhat disposable, and there really hasn't been a lot of emphasis on protecting providers and in hearing them in terms of, what we can do to improve our patient care. And so we're getting a lot of top-down decisions from people that are not on the front line taking care of patients. And for us, we are there every single day, and we know how these little tiny decisions can make huge impacts in terms of our ability to best provide care for our patients. And so, just that compounded over the years, it was present long before the pandemic. And I think within the pandemic, it just, really kind of became apparent to everyone, the necessity of it. And I think everyone also just kind of started to open their eyes that we can push for change. So it really wasn't just because of the pandemic. That was definitely a stressor, but this has been going on for a long time. And, at the end of the day, we can provide better care when the people that are physically caring for our patients are having have a seat at the table and can help make those decisions. And so that's really what spurred this, because we were just having a lot of turnover from people that have been in the organization, really trying to push for changes to help people and just getting ignored by management. So this was really our push for improved patient care.
Yeah, you find that a lot. I mean, when you talk to people about one of the reasons they generally form unions, a big part of it is, that say in their working conditions, that dignity in their workspace, that input into what they do. Here's the thing. I mean, you don't often hear doctors, organizing. You don't often hear them, seeking unions and collectively bargaining like this. So this is kind of a unique story, in that, you guys have come together in this fashion. I guess, this is, for me, kind of a unique situation. Are there many other models like this, or is yours unique?
So there are other federally qualified healthcare centers that have provider unions within the country. That being said, as far as we can tell, based on NLRB records, we are the first union of its kind in the South. I do think that we may see a growing trend of healthcare providers unionizing. I think for years, decades now, healthcare providers are going into this work because they're just really deeply caring people, and tend to just take a lot on themselves to really, make ends meet and meet these gaps. But over the years and more, we're realizing that so much of this is coming from systemic issues. And, part of that is within our organization, part of that is within the government, and, lack of resources, and lack of organization and coordination within our larger healthcare system. And I think that, within our organization, just us within our union can push for some really significant changes within our organization, but also, as more and more healthcare providers begin to organize, I think we can really make a lot of progress for substantial change, because at the end of the day, we are the ones that are providing the care. We are the ones that are seeing those needs. And when I say we, it's not just, physicians, nurse practitioners, providers, it's nurses, medical assistants. There are so many people that are part of this team, and they need to be heard.
No, absolutely. But, because where my mind is spinning in this moment is, the small family doctor's gone. The small family doctor's office, at least where I'm at, that's gone. Everything's being gobbled up by these massive conglomerates. And doctors got to feel like factory workers at this point, just part of an assembly chain where you're just a number on a roster at this point. And in order to gain some control over the care that you provide, this seems like the next logical course of action to regain some of the controls of your craft. At least from my vantage point, this is what it seems.
No, I absolutely agree. I think over time, our healthcare system has kind of transformed into a model of high throughput care. And so, especially within primary care, we're seeing, 22 patients a day, and the push is to see as many people as you can in a day. And that's hard when you're seeing people with really complex conditions. And we know that that people do better when there's more time to connect and really hear them and explain the decisions that you're making about their care. And we really push to have that time. But it's difficult. You can set personal boundaries within your work setting. But there are systemic boundaries that need to be set as well. And we need a union in order to do that.
Yeah, I mean, that's crazy. You're listening to The Rick Smith Show. We're here with Michaela McCuddy. She's a union member, spokesperson for the Healthcare Providers Union there, the Piedmont Health Services Provider United, also a doctor, as she pointed out. This is a fantastic thing that I'm hearing about. And I'm hoping other doctors and other nurse practitioners and other healthcare professionals do this as well, because, coming out of this pandemic, and I'm sure you went through this all during the pandemic, being, the hero, the essential frontline hero, all of the names, the titles, the platitudes we threw at you, the respect, I don't know so much. How do you feel coming out of the pandemic? How are you dealing with coming out of it at this point?
I think that's such a loaded question. I just because it's been so complex emotionally. Being in the depth of the pandemic, I was working in the hospital in the depths of the pandemic and seeing incredibly sick people. And I think it's been very hard, to be honest, as a healthcare provider, seeing how it's been politicized and seeing just so much misinformation being spread around. And as a healthcare provider, we're the ones that have the experiences, and we're the ones that are seeing people suffering. I think we are feeling hopeful that things are getting better, but it's difficult. There's a lot of burnout. There's a lot of people that have left the field. We are hurting for nurses all over, and that has led to other strains on the system. And so in terms of just how this is moving forward, I think people are kind of moving towards more of a sense of normalcy, but that could also lead to more infections and more pressure on a system that's already weak, just with so much burnout. So I think we're feeling hopeful, but also just biding our time. We're going to see what's happening, and we're supporting one another. We're still in this because we love it, and we're never going to leave our patients' sides.
Well, let's hope not. No, I sure hope not, because the fear is a lot of people are going to leave, and a lot of it is the burnout. A lot of it is as the reason you guys have organized. I hear it a lot. They don't have any control over what's going on. Now, you said a moment ago that 91% of the folks voted to form this union. You guys are moving forward with that. Contract negotiations going to begin soon. Are we fairly confident that a contract's going to happen? Where are our thoughts going in that direction?
At this point, I think overall the response from our management after we voted in our union was very positive, and so we're feeling hopeful that they will respect the process and sit down and negotiate with us and bargain with us in good faith. They did release a statement after our vote results came out that they intended to bargain with us in good faith, and so I'm very hopeful for that, because I want this to be a collaborative relationship. I think we can move forward and we can do really good things together.
See, that's the attitude that I wish more people had. It's a collaborative thing. Instead of it having to be adversarial, it's a way to move forward in a much more positive direction. It's a way for both sides to bring the positives to the table and get the best possible outcome, so that everybody walks away with the best possible outcome. See, to me, that's the right way to look at this.
Exactly. I think that's the really sad part about these union busting law firms, is that they just they really taint the whole intention of what a union is, and just kind of immediately their whole strategy is to pit you against your employer and pit your employer against you. And really, if we could just understand that what we're asking for is just a voice, so that we can help the organization do better. And work together, I think that this can be a really positive thing. So I'm hoping that that everyone within the organization will be kind of moving forward with that mentality, hopefully.
Last line of questioning I've got for you, because this is a unique unit that you've put together. At least I think it is. Doctors and nurse practitioners and midwives and physicians assistants. It's not something you see all the time, especially in the South. But you kind of did it in a unique way as well, using an online tool to do it. It's not something that not something that old school organizers like me are accustomed to. So you walk me through how you did it.
So we went through a newer online tool called Unit, and they are kind of a larger online platform, but then they provide support on the ground as well. And so we had a kind of our lead organizer, who's not a provider, he's an organizer by profession, met with us and started to help us strategize. And then we formed our organizing committee and moved forward from there. And we've, it's been a lot of us just kind of meeting regularly and really taking on different responsibilities amongst the organizing committee and then our lead organizer. And we've also had a lot of legal support that was provided through unit as well that were absolutely invaluable. We would not be here without them. It was an incredibly powerful and important learning process for all of us just to understand, the power that we have when we do organize. And I think all of us kind of came into it feeling like even if we didn't win the union, it would still have been worth it because it was such an incredible, important learning experience getting to work with these professionals. And we did win. So we're just excited to get to continue that relationship moving forward.
Well, congratulations. It sounds fabulous. I wish you guys the best. I hope that this takes off, and I hope more places across the country follow this model, and we get more nurses and doctors and people to have rights on the job and voice in what they're doing and following your lead. But I appreciate the time, Michaela. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Rick. I appreciate it.
Great stuff. Thanks so much. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Do you think this is a good idea? Do you think we need more doctors in unions? I know I do. Give me a call, 1-866-416-RICK, 1-866-416-7425. Share your thoughts. Are there any places near you that do this? Or are you a healthcare professional? Love to hear it, 1-866-416-7425. Quick break, right back. Stick around. You're listening to The Rick Smith Show. If you're a fan of the show, you've heard our labor history in 2 segments, and you can hear them on the radio pretty much anywhere in the U.S. Labor history has never been more important than it is right now. So here's what we'd like you to do. Tell a teacher. Tell a teacher that labor history is important and that they can get digestible 2-minute lessons that are absolutely free. Free to download, free to use, free to share. Tell a teacher to go to thericksmithshow.com/history and help us put labor back where it belongs, in the classroom. Generations of American workers fought, bled, and died to build the American way of life. It's our job to keep their stories alive. Go tell a teacher that we're here to help them do just that. Find us at thericksmithshow.com/history today.
Welcome back to The Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
1-866-416-RICK, 1-866-416-7425. Or you can email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. I think it's a great idea for doctors to have unions. We used to have doctor unions in the past. They did. We had, you go back to the 40s and 50s, there were unions for just about everything. Insurance companies, you name it. Because, people believed in the idea of coming together and working for better wages, hours, conditions. That's the reality. And we need to get back to that, especially today. I think about, in fact, my wife and I were just talking about this earlier, the fact that our family physician retired. And, good for him. He made it to the end of the road. And, we're now going, okay, where do we go? The idea of having one doctor that we go to for all of our family issues, is now over. Our son, needs a physical. So, it's now months to get in, to get a physical. You go, oh, no, now you got to go to a med clinic instead of just going to the family doctor, which is crazy. Because, I've always been accustomed to being able to, I've always had a family doctor. And those days are over. And I know that the doctors don't like it either. And like she said, you see 22 patients in a day? How much time can you spend with someone if you're banging through 22 people in a day? How much honest care are you giving? I mean, that's not even really enough time to read someone's chart, let alone have a conversation. Now, to be honest, my doctor who retired, he went a little overboard. Every time I would go in there, he was always a little too chatty, and it usually would be 20, 30, 45 minutes of just chatting away before we ended up getting into whatever I was there for. But that was how he ran his office. It was his, so it didn't matter. And then he sold to a big conglomerate, and then it was all straight downhill from there. And that's part of where our healthcare system is going. There are no more sleepy town, little small town doctors left anymore. At least not that I'm finding. And in order for doctors to be able to have some control in their working conditions, maybe the future is they're going to have to unionize. Maybe that's the direction. Maybe the future is they're going to have to start doing what Michaela and her coworkers did and unionize, just like factory workers. And I know, oh my gosh, doctors joining unions? Yeah, why not? I mean, the sad reality is you got bean counters running hospitals. What do they know about seeing patients? You can't stamp out, every patient isn't the same. It's not like stamping out widgets. You need to be able to connect and understand and know the history. Or at least I think, look, I'm not a doctor, but it seems sane and rational that you would need that. But good on them. I think it's a great thing. I think it's important, and I hope others will most certainly. I hope others will get the idea. Sad story today for me. My wife and I used to scuba dive when we were younger, and it was one of those things that I was hoping at some point to get back to. One of those things that once the kids, get older and we start traveling again without the kids. Australia and the Great Barrier Reef has always been like that. That must go before I die, that bucket list thing. But the story doesn't have me all that thrilled. They're saying, the last 2 years, not great. Evidently, ocean temperatures have risen to such a degree that mass bleaching has happened. And by the time we get there, because I'm not planning on it for another couple of years, if we can go, it'll all be gone. And I'm just like, we're doing nothing. And this is what's frustrating. I mean, we're in a moment right now where gas prices are through the roof. We're in a moment right now where as a country, we should be collectively going, no, now's the time to get off the juice. Now's the time where we should be moving full head of steam in a direction to at least alleviate some of the pressure on the juice. Take us in a direction that's going to help, at least help. But we're not, because we got, the senator from coal. And we can't seem to get anything done. I like Elon Musk for the fact that he's saying, look, there are ways that we could power this planet that are not all that difficult. We could build, all kinds of, solar, stations. We could build all kinds of things that could power the planet. We're just not going to do it. And we're not going to do it because of entrenched interests. I wish we would organize. I wish we would come together and really, just stick it to the oil companies. And you do that by just not going anywhere. You do that by stop buying gas for a while. Everybody stay home for a day. Take a day off. But we're never going to do that because they know it. We're addicted to it. We got to get to work. We got soccer games to get to. We got stuff we got to get to, man. We got lives to lead. Crazy. Love to hear your thoughts. You can email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. If you missed any of the program, remember, download the podcast. Never miss a moment. Take the program on the go. Make sure it's always there. Share it with your friends. Quick break. Right back. I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2 on On this day in labor history, the year was 1968. That was the day the staff at radio station KMPX in San Francisco went out on strike. The radio station had broken new ground with their underground rock format. In 1967, the station hired Tom Big Daddy Donahue as a DJ. Prior to that time, the station had aired mostly foreign language programming. Their new DJ brought a new, cutting-edge style to the radio dial. Instead of playing the big hits of the day, as most radio stations did, Donahue played local artists and songs you would not hear on other programs. Soon the station had fully transitioned to music programming. It featured a mix of rock, folk, and blues. Sometimes DJs even spun full albums like the Beatles' Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Heart Club Band. Soon, the popularity of the programming led the owners to lend Donahue to KPPC out of Pasadena, California. Stretched thin, tensions over creative differences soon mounted between Donahue and the owners. When Donahue was replaced, the rest of the staff walked off the job. The owner hired replacement workers, and bands like the Rolling Stones, the Grateful Dead, and Joan Baez boycotted the station. The Grateful Dead held 3 benefit concerts for the strikers. Creedence Clearwater Revival played a street concert from the back of a flatbed truck to support their cause. The strike lasted 8 weeks before Donahue and some of the staff found a new gig at another station.
So may I introduce to you the acting over all these years, Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band.
Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show. For more information, go to laborhistoryin2.com.
In corporate speak, there are no, quote, job cuts. Instead, firings are blandly referred to as employment adjustments. Now, though, corporate wordsmiths will need a whole new thesaurus of euphemisms, for masses of job cuts are coming for employees in the higher echelons of the corporate structure. Don't look now, but an unanticipated result of the ongoing pandemic is that it has given cover for CEOs to speed up the adoption of highly advanced RPAs, robotic process automation, to replace employees once assumed to be immune from displacement. As one analyst told a New York Times reporter, with RPA, you can build a bot that costs $10,000 a year and take out 2 to 4 humans. Prior to the COVID crisis, many top executives feared a public backlash if they pushed automation too far too fast. But ironically, the economic collapse caused by the pandemic has so discombobulated the workplace and diverted public attention that corporate bosses have been emboldened to rush ahead. While the nationwide shutdown of offices and furloughing of employees has caused misery for millions, one happy purveyor of RPA systems notes that it has, quote, massively raised awareness among executives about the variety of work that no longer requires human involvement. He cheerfully declares, we think any business process can be automated, advising corporate bosses that half to 2/3 of all the tasks being done at their companies can be done by machines. This is Jim Hightower saying, conventional corporate wisdom blithely preaches that all new technologies create more jobs than they kill. But even these Pollyannish preachers are now conceding that this robotic automation of white-collar jobs is being imposed so widely, suddenly, and stealthily that losses will crush any gains.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So the TSA has been busy. Evidently, in 2021, the amount of guns that they have seized, nearly 6,000 guns. The most ever, according to the Washington Post. How do you go to the airport? This is one of those things that just, I don't understand. I don't understand how you just, I don't know. I didn't know I had a gun with me. I don't know how almost 6,000 people go to the airport and go, oh, gee, I must have forgot I had my gun with me. I don't know how you do that. Because there are literally signs everywhere. And it's literally ingrained in you. Now, I understand if someone packed your bag for you and they ask you, did anyone pack your bags for you? And why would you allow someone to pack your bags for you? Beyond me. This is where I go back to, I think penalties should be much more severe. Slap on the wrist, no more. I think at a certain point you go, okay, from this day forward, you bring a gun to the airport, we're no more. You're going. There's a mandatory minimum year in jail. That's simple. We're done with you. We're done with you gun fetishists. If you can't figure out, don't bring a gun to the airport. We got a place for you. We got empty jail cells. We're going to use them. That's simple. Anyway, here to share some thoughts and maybe tell me if I'm wrong. I've asked our good friend Bob Ney to come share some thoughts, former Ohio congressman and political analyst. Bob, thanks for taking time for us.
Well, thank you, Rick.
So what do you think? Year in jail.
I always use you and I as the example. If you and I went somewhere with a gun to an airport, we're going to go to jail. I use you and I as an example. I don't know why, but we're going to go to jail. And I'm looking at this story, and it is a federal crime. I don't understand why all of those people haven't been charged. Is it because there are too many? I mean, is that the reason? You know?
No, I don't know. I just don't know how you do it, Bob.
Huge. It's one firearm for every 197,000 people that are flying, and a lot of people fly, a lot more than 197,000.
And the thing is these are the ones that they catch.
Right.
To make me feel warm and fuzzy, they don't catch all of them.
Now, the common rationale that they're giving in this story, and this is the quote, they just aren't as familiar with the rules, and they're not accustomed to checking for prohibitive items before going to the airport.
All right, see, this is where I'm going to call BS. BS.
Well,
there should not be a person in this country after September 11th who doesn't know you don't bring a gun to the airport.
Well, exactly. I mean, you don't bring an aerosol can. I can see you brought your little pair of scissors that you carry in your travel case. But it's like, oh no, I think I can bring a gun. Yeah, I think I can do that.
No, I left the 4-ounce toothpaste at home, but I brought my gun.
Right. And then the other thing, too, in these days, the last plane I was on, Rick, the stewardess very politely said to the guy, which I was so happy, he was sitting there eating an entire bag of potato chips before the flight took off. And he was doing it on purpose because he could then eat the entire bag, basically, nonstop crunching, because he was trying to keep his mask off.
Right.
And she very politely said at some point in time between, taking bites, and he got unruly. Don't talk to me like a baby. I demand to see, this and that. And I'm sitting there thinking, okay, we're going to get diverted. This plane's not going to take off. With all the unrest on airplanes, which there's a lot of it, there's a lot of physical violence, do you really want somebody getting past there with a gun on top of everything?
Huh?
No, you don't.
No, I mean, it's crazy times that we live in, and the fact that guns are more prevalent. I'm surprised we haven't had actually more violence at the airport than we've already had. But the fact that almost 6,000, I think the fact that it keeps going up, you got to get much more stringent with the penalties. Just that simple.
Jason Wallace, the airport law enforcement agency network president. He's also, I think he's police chief for the Port of Portland. He's recommending significantly raising the penalties, the civil penalties, and permanently, not just temporarily, revoking benefits of what they call the Trusted Traveler Program that allows passengers access to expedited lanes, for the airport checkpoints. And so he's calling that. And he says, about this is an issue where this isn't gun control. This is where it makes common sense. Nobody brings a gun unless you're, a police officer and you're supposed to have one or a federal marshal.
Yeah.
Nobody brings a gun trying to get on a plane.
Or you go the other route. Say, okay, fine. You're not responsible enough to follow the rules. You can never have a gun again. You lose your rights. Gun nuts go crazy over that. Now I have stepped on the rail. I'm going to get angry.
But, at least they should, gun supporters should want this to be stopped. They should. I didn't say they did, but they should want this to be stopped. You don't want an incident on a plane where somebody, has a gun illegally on a plane and starts shooting the plane up.
Nope, I don't want it while I'm on the plane because I know what happens. I've played this out in my head. The person with a gun aims at someone and hits me. I know how this plays out.
Oh, okay. See, I always go back to you and I. We're the two that would go to the federal post office. We'll be carrying something in, accidentally break a window, and do 3 years. But if we raided the Capitol, we'd do 3 months.
Yeah, exactly. No,
right.
It is what it is. Let's move on to your state. Your state's crazy. What's going on in Ohio? What's going on in OH-10, man? Going to impeach the Supreme Court justice, the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court for rejecting the third legislative maps. You got the two Senate candidates. Josh Mandel wants to beat up the old guy, Mike Gibbons. There's all kind of craziness going on in your state.
I don't mind that. It's politics, Let's let them hit each other and see who can win. And then if Gibbons can beat up Mandel loses. So that one I'll give them a pass on for being crazy. But the Ohio Supreme Court rejected the third set of the Ohio State House District maps, and the Republicans are saying, wait a minute, it reflects the state's partisan breakdown. What kills me on this, though, Rick, every time somebody in this business of politics, whether it's state or federal, they do something that somebody doesn't like, it's like, we're going to impeach them.
Yeah.
Because they stated their opinion. We're going to impeach them and throw them out. So this is another ruling, 4-3 ruling. The court found that the Redistricting Commission latest maps have failed to pass the constitutional muster. And the problem with this, of course, is the election's around the corner. Like it's soon around the corner.
Yeah, no, and
like they've got to print the ballots in a matter of days.
And the thing that gets me is, this is the Republicans doing. I mean, they did this on purpose, in my view. They waited to the last minute to put out the first set of ballots. They've dragged their feet at every step of the way. They have done this on purpose, and they know what they're doing because they've got candidates in all of the districts that they know are already drawn.
Well, also, I mean, you do have the Chief Justice Maureen O'Connor is a moderate Republican, and she has repeatedly, on this issue, joined all the court Democrats to invalidate the maps. And she actually wrote the majority opinion herself on this. And she said that the evidence shows beyond a reasonable doubt that the main goal of the individuals who drafted this, which are, all Republicans, was to favor the Republican Party and disfavor the Democrat Party.
Right.
Now, our state, Rick, and this is the other thing about it, it is overwhelmingly Republican in the legislative numbers. So I'm wondering what was the great fear out here to make this balanced. There really, shouldn't be an abnormal fear on this.
On whose part? On the legislature's part or the Supreme Court's part?
No, the Republicans.
Yeah, I mean, it's a 55-45 state. I mean, Republicans are gonna still have control, and even the maps that the Democrats put forth gave Republicans the advantage,
right?
Just not as big of an advantage.
Not as big.
But Republicans wanted a bigger advantage.
Some competition in there. So that's what I said. The Republicans in the legislature shouldn't be afraid to draft something that makes some competition in the elections. But they're down to the point now. First of all, they're not going to impeach the Chief Justice.
No.
Number two, they are down to where these ballots, and I don't know the exact last day, but if something doesn't happen, I'm assuming by the early part of next week, then they have to move the election.
So is that what's going to happen?
That will not be good.
At what point does someone step in and either impose districts, or when do they start locking people up? I was under the impression last time that the governor could have been locked up, that anybody, they could have locked somebody up. When do they start locking people up?
Well, what they can do is they can actually, and it was done once when I was there because I was in the State House side and the Senate both. They had a call to lock the Senate doors and literally lock everybody in. It was on a vote. I think it was the home state savings vote. I forget something. And then whoever was missing, they went out and got them. They were going out to get them. So yes, it can be done. But look, the leadership is going to have to get together in the House and the Senate over there. The Republicans, not the Democrats.
Right.
Republicans, and say, okay, pull their caucuses in and say, we have a problem. It's not going to go away. We're losing. We're going to lose with our own Republican Chief Justice, so we need to do something. When you don't have the vote, you need to do something else, and they don't get it.
Yeah. I want to get your thought on Marjorie Taylor Greene.
What did she do now?
Marjorie on the House floor said, "I have never seen the CDC coming out saying, 'Oh, you've got to get your second polio shot. You've got to get your third polio shot. You've got to get your fourth.' Yet the CDC's website distinctly says 4 doses of polio shots are suggested for children, recommended by doctors: 2 months, 4 months, 6 months, and 4 years."
It's a 4-shot series.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what it is. It has been since I was a kid.
It is literally a 4, but evidently Marjorie doesn't believe so. Because it's conspiracy, Bob. It's a conspiracy.
I can't believe she actually said that. And then I can't believe she holds on to it once they say, well, wait a minute. It takes 4. It's a 4 series. And so she's obviously proving herself wrong, but I don't think she cares. I don't think it matters. Crazy times, man. Crazy.
I also wanted to get your thoughts on what's going on over in Ukraine. Did you see the big rally today over in Moscow? Putin gave his. I thought it was kind of Trumpish, kind of a little Trumpy speech. A lot of people are saying more like Lenin, that way.
There's some Lenin to it too. He talked about the gnat that gets in your mouth and you spit it out. Yeah. They've thrown the nuke words, around. He's now going after his own people in Russia. The oligarchs are now Western demons, and the West is trying to bring homosexuality to Russia. Yeah. That's what the West is doing. That's what this is all about. He's invading the Ukraine to keep the Western gay movement out of Russia.
Keeping the gays out of Russia.
Yeah. So by invading Ukraine, that will, that'll solve his problem. He actually, said that the West is going to, trying to influence us with this, and he's just he's brutal, vicious. The president, of course, our president had a conversation, a long one today with China, with the president of China, and you can see where China is. It's not saying it publicly. China is starting to say, "Wait a minute," because Russia didn't, take the Ukraine in a couple of days. The president ordered $1 billion to help the Ukraine. I did get a kick out of this, Rick. President Biden did 2 things, and one was to release, the authority to give some drones, some things like that to the Ukraine. Now that was right before the morning of the call by Zelensky. And then the second thing he did was to release, the $1 billion. And of course, some in Congress are like, well, we wanted to do that. They should just kind of applaud the president, go along with the president. It's not pride of authorship. Just you get the money, you go with it. I must also say Zelensky did. I thought his Zoom calls were absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah,
phenomenal. How he addressed Trudeau. What about bombing Ottawa and Toronto airports? What do you think, Justin? And then when he talked about President Biden, he didn't say the name President Biden, but he talked about country leaders who can become world leaders. And then he referred President Biden. I thought it was a stroke of genius. I thought it was genuine. This guy is amazing, absolutely amazing.
If he lives, he's going to be something.
Oh yes, he's one for the history books. And the issue now is the no-fly zone. And one thing I think that I know there's members pushing the president to do the no-fly zone. We cannot. If you do a no-fly zone, it is not a defensive move. It is an offensive move. You don't have a no-fly zone unless you have your jets flying. That's a no-fly zone. Because some of you the other day said, well, we'll have our jets ready. No, it doesn't work that way. You have them up there. It's offensive. And if it's just us versus the Russians, it can turn out really, really bad. Now, if all of NATO decides to, join together with some aircraft, that could be a little different.
Yeah. No, I said the second you put an American fighter against a Russian fighter, it now becomes the U.S. versus Russia, and that is not a dynamic I want to see on the front page of any Russian newspaper.
Not at all. I think the president has masterfully handled this situation. I think he's getting credit, and I even think some of the Republicans know. I mean, there's some harping on him, but I think some of the Republicans even know that he's handled some things, brought obviously NATO together, because a year or two ago we were questioning as a country officially whether we would be in NATO or there would be a NATO. So I think the president has obviously gotten a lot of support from Europe.
Now, I thought it was interesting, though, that you had Zelensky, questioning, the no-fly zone and kind of beating Biden up a little bit, for not. And then you got you got the drones, and nobody said a peep about the drones going over there, even though those are kind of a game changer, because these are offensive weapons. I mean, these are they're called kamikaze drones for a reason.
Right. I mean, we put our drones in there. They're using them, but they're ours. Obviously, the Russians can say, well, our people were killed because of your drones. They can say that. So the president took that step. Now, I understand Zelensky's got to go for broke. He wants, obviously jets up there from all, 5 or 6 countries, and that will really make the Russians freak. So he had to go for broke, and he hit Trudeau too. Not hit Biden or Trudeau in the sense of, the White House would say, wow, we're not dealing with that guy. It's not like that. But he made his strong point because he's got to go for broke.
Yeah. Now, people are like, well, we should just send him fighters. You can't just send him fighters. You gotta actually know how to fly them.
Right. Exactly.
And you have to have the team that actually knows how to fix them, to maintain them. I mean, there's a lot. There's millions of dollars put into just getting them up into the air and maintaining them. Let alone, it's one thing to have it. It's a whole nother thing to operate it and to keep it in the air. Let alone actually fighting with it.
Well, there's another fundamental question that a lot of people aren't looking at, and the Pentagon knows. The fact that if you take X amount of the jets and you send them over there, it would have to go to Poland, and Poland would then, take them in. If you do that, we don't just snap our fingers and replenish them over here.
Right.
And it puts us at a disadvantage if something would have, possibly would happen. That's why I said if it's a cooperative effort of 6 to 7 to 8 to 9 nations that all, put some jets into the process, that's one thing. But for us to deplete, as much as this is horrendous and horrible, and Putin's crazy and he's a monster, and we're helping, but to deplete our jets wouldn't do anybody any favors.
Do you see him go nuke? Do you see him use a nuke? I mean, this isn't gonna end anytime soon. Do you think?
Well,
do you see the potential of a nuke?
I didn't actually think he was going to invade. I thought these were steps he was taking. He's obviously become a monster, a bully, angry, thumping his chest, etc. I would have said no, but once you've seen one nuclear war, you've seen them all. And I would think that if he got close to nuclear, although he's the KGB president, as they call him, but he's dictator of Russia, I would just think that that would be the stopping point for some other people in the Kremlin to maybe tell him bye-bye.
Yeah, I mean, did you see the story the other day that he's basically replaced his entire 1,000 person personal staff? Which I'm going, why would you replace your entire personal staff? At least those people. You kind of have a sense of who's going to stab you in the back. Why would you bring in a whole replacement of new people who you don't really know? But evidently has taste testers and people who taste his food and all kinds of stuff now. All the security protocols.
I'm sitting here. He's wanting to take out the oligarchs. I had met with the president of Yukos Oil years ago at the request of our ambassador. Putin took him out and took the company away from him because he gave some contributions to an opponent of Putin's. So he operates like this. But now the oligarchs, he's attacking them. He said, yes, they have their yachts in Miami, and he's attacking them. People are taking planes out of Russia to escape, and the wealthy obviously included. So, I'm sitting here thinking the billionaire oligarchs with all their money, do two or three of them get together and say, how about we let the word be out that there's $200 million sitting over here for anybody that would like to get a bit, quote, aggressive.
Well, there was a guy within the first day or two who offered $1 million.
Well, they've got money; they can go to $200 million. That'll up the chances.
Up the ante right there, $200 million.
Absolutely.
You might get one of those generals that he sent home and put under house arrest.
Right. Now, we really could, if you really want to get Putin, though, you could send Marjorie Taylor Greene over and let her talk.
Oh, jeez.
In the Russian Assembly.
What do you make of that vote? I mean, it was 400 and something to 8 to repeal most favored trade status, and you get the regular suspects. I don't know where Louis Gohmert was. I don't know if he was harassing juvenile detention centers or what,
right.
but the regular 8, Gates and Green and Boebert and the rest of them. What do you make of that?
I don't know, because don't get me wrong, when I cast, Ron Paul, Butch Otter, and I cast the 3 Republican no votes on the Patriot Act, people were saying, coming up to me saying, what's wrong with you? Now, they didn't come up to me and say, you voted wrong. They said, you voted right, but you're going to lose your election. That's what they said to me. But on this case, it's not where anybody's going to go up and say, you guys voted right, and we were afraid to. People are going to go up and say, what's wrong with you?
Yeah.
This is a whole different, ball game. And I have no idea how you could justify not voting for that. I just don't see how you can justify it.
There is no justification other than these people are so anti-Joe Biden
that's what it is. It's the president, so they're going to go against him and then say, I went against him because he's making the wrong move on
That's all it is.
Status.
That's all it is. But Bob, I appreciate the time as always.
Rick.
Great stuff.
Thank you.
Our good friend Bob Ney, former Ohio Congressman, political analyst, and all-around great guy. Look, I don't know why the 8 idiots would vote the way they did. It's you go explain that. If there's one thing that you go, hey, this is something that should bring everybody together. It's saying we're not going to trade with a madman. Seems like an easy one, but I think it is. I think it's all about these people hate Joe Biden so much. But the good thing is there's only 8 of them. I mean, even Louis Gohmert. I thought Louis Gohmert he'd have been there. I'm sure he had an appointment that day. That's the only thing I can think of. Had to have another appointment. Anyway, if you missed any of today's program, thericksmithshow.com. That's where you go to get the podcast. The Rick Smith Show app on the smartphone. Take the program on the go wherever you go. And as always, you can email me, Rick, at thericksmithshow.com. Remember, follow us on social media, on Twitter at Rick Smith Show, Facebook, YouTube. Like, subscribe, share. Make sure you tell your friends. And again, make sure you grab the podcast, subscribe, share, do all of that stuff. Thanks so much for being here. We'll see you back here next time.
been listening to The Rick Smith Show. Email Rick at rick@thericksmithshow.com. Until next time, this has been The Rick Smith Show, where working people come to talk.